Hi there, this is Pranav from DBS Diary. Good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on your location. I hope you are doing great today. So today we are going to talk about Sybase system tables and MDA tables. Okay, so system tables, it is falling in two categories. One is there in the master database and one is there in the user database, right? So there are a couple of tables which is used universally, and it is very much of help when you have to find out where is the blocking, right? you uh, you check the sys processes. Okay, then you also check the sys logs hold if there is anything which is holding the log. And then there are many other table which is MDA table, where we have to enable certain configuration to make use of that. If you have not enabled it, you cannot really use that, right? So we'll just go through one by one tables and we'll see how it is useful for a DBA, whatever information we can get it, right? So let us start the session. So this is Sybase system tables and MDA tables. Okay. So these are the things that I'm planning to cover. So these are the tables which is there in the user database. Okay. So these entries or the entries in this table will vary depending on the database you are currently in, right? So you can run these queries from the master database also, from subsystem procs also, from other database, like if you have user database defined, even from there you can use it. So let us see what all things we have in these tables. But before getting into that, let me show you. So here I have two instances in my lab. Let me log into this. Okay. So this is one of the instance. So at server name. So here you will see it is ASE1, and then I have one more instance which is here. ASE2. Okay. So I am going to use these two instances to show you how we are going to make use of this table which is there in master and also in the user database. Okay. So let us start with ASE1. Okay, ASE1. Now let us go into master database. Okay, use master. So you can verify that using tb underscore name, which I have showed you already. Okay, master. Now there are certain table, like for example, select star from sys processes. Okay, so this is very handy when you have to find out which all processes are there and how long this has been running, what is the IP address of the host from where it is connected. Okay, you can see all the information. Let me scroll it up and you will see which all things are there. So SPID. Okay, then what is the status right now, what is the command. Okay, host name. Okay, so host name is, you can find out the IP address. Physical IO, this is something which I use very frequently when you have something which you are running and then it's not having any fixed time, like how much time it will take to finish, right? So if you are running like reorg rebuild or for example some DVCC job, so in that case you do not know how much time it will take, and but you also need to ensure that it is not stuck, right? So for that what I do is I check this physical IO for that process, for that SPID, and see is it moving or no. So if it is not moving, that means there is something wrong with the process, it's not really making any progress. But if it is moving consistently or constantly, then we know that it is doing some of its job, because there are certain things which is not even logging anything in the error log. So for those cases it is very helpful. Then you have tran name and host process. So logged in date time is another thing that I was talking about. So and IP address is also here. So as host name and IP address both. So logged in date time will help you in finding out the processes which are running from quite some time, and these processes may come or may not come in the syslogs hold. So it's possible that the status is changing. So when the status is changing, that time it will not come in syslog hold. Syslog hold it will come only when it's not moving at all and it is stuck. Okay, or it's doing something consistently. Okay, so this was about sys processes. Then there are certain things like syslogs hold. Okay, so this will have entry for your databases. For each database you will have one entry. Okay, and if there is no entry, that's absolutely fine. but this comes very handy when you have replication in place, database replication is in place. So whether it's MSA or warm standby or table level. So this will help you in finding out whether it is stuck. Okay, so if it is stuck here, then from the source side, so then again we will talk about inbound queue, outbound queue and all that, right? And then we also talk about RS last commit. So RS last commit is something which is at the target server, not at the source server. So at target server, we check what is the RS last commit and what is the origin time, how much time gap is there. So based on that, you can find out how much latency is there between source and target. Okay, and then how much data is there in the queue, that you can find out based on the RS segment, or you can also find out using SQT, SQM as well as disk space. Okay, so we will not get into that, but this is something. So these two tables are very important. Now you can also find out more things if you go into sp_help here and see which all tables are there which can be helpful. So this will produce a lot of information. So those table which I talked about, which I showed you here, so these tables will be here as well, because master is also a database, right? So even those things will be here, but then on top of that you will have more table which will be there only in the master database. Now, so these are mon table which I will talk about in a little while. Okay, so these are things that I was focusing on. Now these tables you can access from other database also using master dot and that will absolutely work. So now let us use our user DB which is there, which we have created, and then let's talk about system tables which is there in the user database. So in the master I mainly talked about two tables, okay, which is sys processes and sys logs hold. Okay, then there are other things also like sys attributes, then sys protects, and there are many other table which is there. But then these things are like, for example, sys protects, that is again table which is there in the each database. Okay, but certain things which is not there in other database, for example, you have syslogs hold, then you will have certain things. Let me give you one example. For instance, sys usages. Okay, this will be there only in the master database. Okay, then you will have some other sys logins will be there. Okay, then you will have sys databases. Let me show you here, sys databases. So these things will be there only in the master database. So sys database will contain all the entries about the database which is defined in your server, on your server. Okay, so now user DB, let's talk about one by one table. So sys column, so basically this column, this table will contain information about all the columns of all the table in that database, and the ID will be unique, not in the sys column but for each object. So what I meant here is, now we are in the user DB. So sp_help, let's see what all objects we have. So we have test_dl, test_log. So let us run this query, select star from sys columns, okay, where id is equal to object_id and pass this here. Okay, so now you see ID, name, mobile and location. So these all columns are there in this particular table which is test table. Okay, so either you can pass like object_id of test, or you pass the object ID itself, which will be unique for this particular table. But then this entry will not be unique in the sys columns, because whatever columns you have in that table, each column will have one entry in this table. Okay, so as you can see. Okay, so this is clear. Then the next one is, so if you are not sure about if you have a column name and then you are not sure on which table this is there, so then you can take help from sys columns table. Now sys comments. Sys comments is very useful for DBA, especially when you have to find out the object details like no procedure name or some trigger name. So in that case it is really helpful. So here I have defined one procedure. I hope the name is correct. Sorry, object ID. Okay, so here I have defined one procedure which is doing nothing but top 10 star from test. So now if you know how to use this syscomments table and you know one part of the procedure, you can find out the name of the procedure and ID of the procedure, which will help you in finding out the complete query. For instance, select star or name from syscomments where text like, now you have one keyword which is top, this only you know. Now if you run this and why it is doing like this, select name from no, you can find out from sys objects and then you can pass it here. So syscomments, let me pass it like this, select ID from, or you can pass like object name also you can do. So let's do like select ID from syscomments where text like percent top percent, and you see here. So now you got this. Now you pass this. So select object underscore name of this ID So if you pass like this, you will get the USP underscore test. So alternatively, what you can do is select object underscore name and you pass the ID, okay, from syscomments and you will get it. Okay, so this is again handy, which is really helpful. Now sys constraint. So if you have any constraint defined, like if you have something like foreign key defined or unique key defined, so in those cases this table is really helpful and it will give you all the information about that. Sys depends. So this sys depends is also again helpful when you have something defined. So for example, we have defined this procedure, right, SP which is USP underscore test. So in this there is nothing but select top 10 star from test. So basically USP underscore test is dependent on the test table, right? So select star from sys depends. If you run it, you will see this ID and dependent ID, right? So if you find this, select object, we already ran this. So 736002622, right? So this is the one which is USP underscore test. So this is dependent on this one, which is object underscore name. If you pass this ID and then you will see this is nothing but test. Okay, so this is really handy when you suppose you are dropping an object. So before dropping, you should be ensuring that nothing is having dependency on that. So if you have any dependency, then you will have trouble. It won't allow you to drop, but then before that only you should know. Okay, so that was another table. Sys indexes. So this is again handy when you have to find out the details of each and every indexes in that database. So here you can see you have these indexes and you will see index ID and object ID. So we have test underscore DL, then what all column it has, test underscore log, okay, and then so it will have primary key and then you will have other indexes which is non-clustered index. So name is the name of the one index on that table. Okay, so you see these ones are having same ID, right, because both of them are belonging to the same table, like how we saw in the sys columns, right, similar to that. Sys objects is very useful. So this is where we run the details. So select star from sys objects where type is equal to u. So this will give you list of all tables in that database. Okay, so you see here we have test table, test underscore DL, test underscore log. So these three tables are there in this particular database. So you can run this from the master database also, right? Now you can pass other types also, right? So you will have stored procedure, trigger, functions. So everything you can pass as a type, and then you will get all the information about that. Okay. Sys protect. So this is nothing but it will. This is like how you run the sp underscore help protect, right? So that data comes from this table. Okay. Sys statistics is another important table. So when you are asked by team that the performance is slow, so you should run the max of mod date, okay, from sys statistics table. So in order to find out that this is updated, okay, where id is equal to object underscore id, suppose I am talking about test table here. So you see when it is updated, this is updated today, 3rd November 2024. Okay, so that you know that the stats are really up to date. And if you see this is like very old date, suppose 2023 or 2022 or even older than that, so then this could be one of the reason that the optimizer is not able to pick the right plan. Okay, so this should be updated. So the stats should be updated, all the tables is involved in the query which is complained about, right? So this was another one which is important for a DBA. Sys types, basically this talks about all the system defined types and user defined types in this table. So if you run this, you will get all of them. Let me do like top 10. Okay, so you will get all the types here. You see int, float, numeric, money, tiny int, small int, all that. Okay, so if you define your own data type, this will be appearing here. One thing is common in all this table, that id will be, you can pass that as the object id of the object that you want to pass. Okay, so now we will talk about, so there are many other table in the system objects or system tables in database, but these are the one that we mostly use. Okay, and others we don't use that much, so I did not cover much, but these are the ones really helpful and we should know about that. Now let us talk about MDA. So MDA is something which is helping you a lot in finding out the query which is not doing very well, okay, or it helps you in the wait information, like it is waiting on what. So and then it is basically, or maybe you can say it is broadly categorized into multiple things. So one is monitoring and second is like diagnostic, and then it is on the process level and system level. Okay, so anything you see with the process, that is to do with the running process, and anything you see is system, it is at the system level. Okay, now to run this, anything which is on the MDA, you have to enable certain thing. For example, mon process SQL text. Okay, so now this is about the process, which means it is currently running. Now let me go to ASE2 here, and if I run this, right, now here MDA is not enabled. So in order for me to enable this, I need to have all these parameters, all these configurations enabled. Now most of them will be dynamic, but then there could be certain configuration which is static. So if you are planning to enable MDA at the client side or any like prod server, you should be ensuring that all the configurations are already enabled. If it is not enabled, you need to go for downtime and you need to ask for the client to approve for the downtime, or you do the change now, but then this will be effective only when server gets rebooted next time. Okay, so for that, suppose for example this enable monitoring or max SQL text monitor or SQL batch capture, so all these things you have to find out, are they static or they are dynamic. Okay, so you see this is dynamic, so you can change all that. So basically I have done all this change on the ASE1 server and not on the ASE2 server. So I wanted to show you that MDA doesn't work just like that, rather you need to enable certain configurations, have those things configured properly beforehand before running any query. Okay, so let's talk about few MDA tables here. So mon process SQL text is nothing but the currently running processes which is taking time, and then what all things are happening, you can find out from there. So if you want to know what all columns it has, let's go to ASE1 and run this query. So use master. I'm using master so that I don't have to use master dot dot. Otherwise you can use select star from master dot dot, right? So you can see it will have SPID, okay, then other detail, SQL text and other things. So here this is my SPID, I think, yeah, right, 15. So that is what is showing. So it is the currently running process, right? Okay, let us talk about the next one. So mon open object activity. So this is basically, it will show you what all things are currently running right now and what is the activity. Okay, so you see a lot of things are there in this. Okay, so we will not talk about that, but then these tables are really used in conjunction with other table in master database and system database and user database to arrive at some conclusion. That could be usage of index. Okay, if the index have not been used, and whether it is used, then in which operation it has been used, whether it's insert, delete, update or select operation. So indexes are supposed to be used only for select operation and should not be more than DML operation. I think we have talked about that, but that is what is the main thing. Now mon cached statement. So this again, it talks about the statement which has been cached. So for this to work, you need to enable certain things here. Let me show you. So for this, you need to enable statement cache size. Now this is something which will consume memory. So you need to find out how it should be done. Enable monitoring is must for everything. So for any MDA table, you need to have monitoring enabled. Okay, and then enable statement cache monitoring. So all that things should be there. Let us talk about some other table. Mon deadlock. So if you have any deadlock in the environment, we have talked about deadlocks in depth in one of my session. So please go through that, and then you can run this query, or you can retrieve data from this table to find out what all things you have. So I just had one deadlock. I was doing some testing. So you can go to ASE1 and then you can run this query and you will find out that we have information about deadlock. Which is it ASE1? I think that is gone now. So maybe I have rebooted that after this, right? So that is the reason it's not appearing. So you can have the deadlock, or you can execute the steps which I had given in one of my previous lab. Okay, and then you can run the query from this table and you will find out that all the information is there in this particular table. Okay. Spin log activity. This is again about spin log, which we have talked about in one of the interview question and answer. So what is spin log, how to fix it, what all things should be done to address spin log, and what is the impact. So we have talked about that. Now mon sys weights and mon weight event info. This is very important when you have to find out what is the process, or what is the event which is causing maximum wait time in your environment. Okay, it could be network, it could be input, it could be CPU memory, all that thing you can find out from mon sys weight. So let me show you. Now if I run this query, so you see here the maximum wait time is for this particular one, which is 215, right? So if I find out this detail, so select star from mon wait info, which is the table here, mon wait event info. Okay, where wait event ID. Okay, so wait event ID is equal to 215, right? So 215. So if you see here, sorry, okay, so you see here waiting on run queue after sleep. So basically you will find all the information here. So select description from mon wait event info. and you have all the information, all the descriptions, what all things could be there on which your system is waiting, right? So based on that you can take a call whether you have to go for higher RAM or higher CPU or higher throughput in terms of disk, or maybe you can say IO, or there is something to do with the network, right? So based on that you can take a call. Okay, so this was about the system table and MDA table. So I hope this will help you. Okay, so in case of any question, please feel free to put your comment. Okay, and if you like my channel, please do like, comment and subscribe so that I can record more and more sessions. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Have a great day. Thank you.